Welcome to the podcast, Cathi. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to dive into your story and what we're going to share with listeners today.
Yes, I'm thrilled to be here, Angela. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so can you tell us about your business and your journey to entrepreneurship?
Gosh, it's my journey to entrepreneurship started when I became a mom, and when my son was born, and I worked in advertising and marketing, and he was adopted, and I was so miserable going back to work every day that after 6 months, I decided to quit my job and look for some way to have a flexible business. And I found a direct sales company in those days called Creative Memories, which was scrapbooking. They're still around actually, but the rage and the thrill of scrapbooking was new then. And so I joined that organization. And really, was the beginning of an entrepreneur journey that has never left me. And that's almost 29 years now. So it's been a long time.
hmm Yeah, and I mean, I love like the stories of accidental entrepreneurs. So tell
Yeah.
us about photo managers and what it is and how that came about.
Right. So it came about so I spent the first 15 years of helping people make scrapbook photo albums. And the reason I was so passionate about it was that because my son had been adopted, I wanted to create for him what's called a life book, where you can write their story next. I wanted to be able to write his story next to his photos, and there was no way to do that. It's hard to believe today that we didn't have, that's when we were still sending rolls of film into your 1 hour photo lab and waiting. You didn't know if the photos came out from your camera roll. But
Yeah.
I wanted to create for him life book, scrapbook type albums, and I fell in love with that process. And I really fell in love with not only the creative side of storytelling with scrapbooking, but really was the storytelling piece, the importance of getting your photos organized so that you could share them for generations and into the future. And so when people stopped printing their photos, I called it my incredibly shrinking paycheck, because I was earning commission or money on a consumable product, right? People would buy papers and stickers and things like that. And I had what they called downline in those days, where they were also selling it. And we were having huge crop tube drops where I'd have 1,800 people, scrapbooking at different times. But suddenly, when the digital camera came on, people slowly stopped printing photos. Like, Angela, when was the last time you printed photos? Right? Probably
Yeah.
in a while. Um, so in response to that, though, people started asking me for help. Can you help me get my photos from my memory card to my computer? Can you help me? They just were totally confused with the technology part of it. So my first client, the first person was a friend. She said, "Well, what do you charge per hour to help me?" And I was like flabbergasted that she would want me to pay her anything. And I was, we argued as women do, and like, no, yes, no, yes. And finally, I said, "All right, Maria, you can pay me." And I got to her house, and not only did she have a computer filled with, memory cards filled with. Her husband was a Mac user, she was a PC user, but she had also inherited a box of photos when her parents had passed away, and she was one of four kids, and she had told her siblings that she would scan all those and then create an album of her dad who loved to garden. And I said to her, "Well, Maria, I have to get these photos organized first before I could make this album for you." And she said, "Well, I don't care how long it takes, but I guarantee you hundreds of other Marias just like me would pay somebody to do this." So I called myself a photo organizer because I needed to organize the photos to make the photo album for her. And that was in 2009. And my business grew very quickly as people started hiring me what about these old home movies? What about these letters from the Civil War? It became so much more than just photos and just organizing, that other people started asking me if I could teach them how to do it. So fast forward to today, 15 years later, we are an association model of photo managers with over 700 members throughout the world, mostly US, Canada, but we have Europe, we have Australia, South America. And I provide all the training and certification and support for that growing business.
I mean, you're having conventions. Like
Yes.
you started from this, like, oh yeah, I'll, scan these photos and organizing them to, training and certifying people. So talk about some of the success that some of the women who have trained with you have been able to accomplish. Because it's like
It's it's amazing. I know at night
profound.
when I started in some ways I started a profession that didn't exist. There was no such
hmm
thing as a professional photo organizer. We rebranded to the photo managers in 2020 because it's a more accurate description. But It's true. Honest, there was no such thing. And we are ready to have our 13th annual educational conference. And
Mhm.
we have, like I said, members. Our Europe group is having their second conference in Amsterdam in October. And our Australia group is getting ready to put their first conference on because it's too expensive to come to the US. But the success of our members as well is we've really met a need in the marketplace that only has accelerated. So I'd love to say that I knew that the iPhone was going to come on board, or mobile phones, and we would all be carrying a point and shoot camera in our hands at all times. I didn't know that at the time, but I
Mhm.
always knew that people were really attached to their photos, not because I used to walk around those conventions where we used to do those big scrapbooking events. And I think this is not about a bunch of women coming away for a weekend just to cut photos in fun shapes. This was about women gathering together, telling stories, oh, look at this picture of Bobby when he was 3, or here's my grandfather, and it was about telling stories around something that's so meaningful to us. Our photos are our most priceless possessions in many ways, right? We would all be devastated if suddenly somebody wiped out all our photo collections. And now I say, and video and keepsake items, like your baby's first
Mhm.
shoes, or the first little dress you maybe brought somebody home from the hospital, or the cookbook that your great grandmother's handwriting is in. I mean, all of those things tell the stories of our lives. So our members are professionals in helping curate those collections and giving it back to the client in a way that they can share it, search it, and share it to future generations. And many of our members now have outside studios with multiple employees, and some of them are doing it just a second act career. So it's, there's both from, somebody who does it a few hours a week all the way to people with multiple employees and
Mhm.
having a tremendous success.
Mhm. I mean, you're able to have a business of your own and in some cases make six figures doing this and being able to be the mom that you want to be and have the economic freedom that you want. And so, what are some of the specific things that people do who become certified? Like, do they like organize them in a
What
like
is
a
the
Google
services? Right. People
Drive
are confused
or
by all that. I do want to
yeah.
say, as a mom, you know what? My son does this full time. He's 30 now. So he grew up
Hmm.
watching. He quit his full time job 18 months ago, and he's very busy. So he's married now, and he has his own business here in Connecticut and West Hartford. And many of our members, actually, a lot of their kids start out helping them in their teens and then end up working for them. So it's a pretty cool success story. There's a woman down in Naples who's got her daughter working for her, and she's connected with my son because they're the young people, they're in their early, well, Joshua's 30, but her daughter's in her early 20s. But there's a number of services that the most common services. The first one is so printed photo organizing. 10,000 people every day are turning 65 and will for the next 6 years. It's called the tsunami of stuff, of baby
Hmm.
boomers who need to get rid of stuff. And in all
Hmm.
that stuff, as they look to downsize, are going to be boxes of photos, slides, negatives, and old home movies. It's just everybody's got them. So that's a big part of the project. So you can go in, meet the client, kind of do a survey, like take inventory on everything they have and help them have a vision for, one, do their kids really care about that? And we always say, no, yes, they care deeply, but they don't want all of it. And especially
Hmm.
this next generation. So that process becomes the curating of the photo collection and then the scanning. And so scanning is something that can be done in home with, higher end scanners than an inexpensive, not your one that's on your printer, but you get a decent scanner. and and then also home movie conversion, converting all those old movie files into, tapes into movie files. That's a big part of what a lot of people will do. But from that, once they have everything digitized, then the next big step is turning them into keepsake photo albums, family history books, scanning old letters. We had a client, one of our new members, who just, her first job was scanning letters from her parents, her client's parents during the Vietnam War. The dad had written back and forth to the mom when they were dating, and she found all these letters. So as a surprise for them, she had her scan all those letters and then put them in a photo book so that she could gift that to them. So that's kind of a perfect example of a job that somebody would do. But another big piece of it is the digital photo organizing, right? So everybody
Hmm.
has, and now 20 to 50, 60, 70, 100,000 digital images would not be a lot. Everybody thinks they
Hmm.
have the most, but
Hmm.
they don't. And so what has to happen with that is, first of all, they need to be deduped. A lot of deduplication has to go through that. And then you want to add what we call metadata, or the stories. They are with AI. They're going to be geotagged, facial tag recognition. There's a lot of information that you already now have with your photos, but you don't know the story behind that photo. And a lot of times that's what matters. And people are wondering, how do I find my photos of my son's first, birthday, a million, immersed between a bunch of food shops and, to my sister, hey, do you like these green shoes or these blue shoes? Right. I mean, we all do it.
Right.
And so a lot of our members then log in remotely to the clients so they can work anywhere in the world. And they log in and they organize and manage a client's their digital photo collection. So, and then one more thing, I know I'm talking a lot right now, but
No,
we
it's
also,
just incredible.
there's a lot of really great technology out there that the consumers don't know about because you don't, I mean,
Mhm.
I always say nobody's sitting around thinking who created the best app today or the best, cloud storage service for me. But we have the privilege of working with many great companies that have great technology to make this easier. And so we're able to introduce clients to new technology that you wouldn't know about. And then we teach you how to use that technology because that's the other big issue for people
Mm,
is there's just so much technology. We're just all burnt out. Nobody wants to learn a new system unless they
yeah.
have some assistance. And it's so much more fun to learn technology with somebody, a real human being helping you than trying to do it by yourself.
I mean, this is just so fascinating to me because I think so many of us think that all the businesses have been invented, all of the good ideas have already been had, and it's so not true. So, I mean, I just love the story not only about the potential for growth. I mean, we're only more reliant on our digital technology than ever. But everybody needs this service, and it's something like you said you can do from anywhere, and you're really giving something back to somebody. Like you said, those stories.
Very meaningful. We always say it's
Right.
meaningful work. Our clients cry when they get their
Yeah.
project back. And at first they might think, oh, I'm going to pay somebody for that. A lot of people think they're going to do it themselves, but
Mm,
if they're really honest, they never get to it. And
hmm
so that's the piece of the puzzle, right? And it's helping people realize what you're actually giving back to them is something
hmm
that's priceless, right? And you
hmm
can't get that back. And so
hmm
people more and more expect that. So I agree with you. It did
hmm
one of those stories. I remember when I came up with the idea. I mean, it sounds like I did it overnight. I mean, obviously, I could write it. I need someday to write a book about the journey. It's been an arduous journey of successes and failures along the way, trying to grasp always what it was that we were really and staying true to our values and our mission. I always say a rising tide lifts all boats, and we're collaborative, not competitive. So I've worked really hard to create an environment of professionals that work together. So our members are really connected because they're helping each other all the time. You can't
hmm
know all the technology. So one of our members, Paul, we call him he's our Apple genius guy. He really, well, quite a few members now really know the Apple ecosystem, which constantly changes. And
mm
another member may not, they just can say, hey, Paul, on our private Facebook, I have a client, who can't get her photos out of our iCloud library. And I tried this and this, it's not working. And he'll say, oh, well, just use this or do this.
hmm
That's been a key to the success of the organization.
I love that because, yeah, technology is often changing. And if you're doing this remotely, you could feel kind of isolated and
Mhm.
not connected to a bigger community that's also doing this. So I would love to hear about if somebody is listening to this and going, ooh, I think I would either like to add this as a component to my business, or I would be interested in starting this for myself or somebody I know. How would they go about doing it? And like, what do you help teach them?
Right. Yeah. And, education is really our core foundation value from the beginning because you need to learn a lot. You can
hmm
go, we have two ways to join. You can join as a professional member, or we have what we call a photo manager in training. We added that last January because a lot of people join to get their own photos organized first. And then they think,
mm
well, let's see if I like it. And we realize that there's a big difference between just getting your own photos organized and starting a business. So if you join as a professional and you've never had a business, we have a whole training program about how do you set yourself up as an LLC or a small business? What kind of checking account? What is the software? How do you bill people? What do you charge? How do
Oh,
you
that's
actually run a
great.
business? Because
hmm
having a business is different than doing the business.
Right.
And a lot of people get confused by that. They start out with their hobby that they love, and then they realize, oh boy, I got to figure out how do I pay taxes and how do I do all that. So we
Right.
offer a tremendous amount of support in that in our professional level. And then we have our core curriculum, which is printed photo organizing. How do you manage a client's printed photos? Digital photo organizing. How do you manage a client's digital? How do you do scanning? So we have all core curriculum that's all based on that. And then
Mm-hmm.
every month we do a training webinar that goes into our training vault. So this month we're doing how to sell a luxury brand item. Well, we
Mm-hmm.
also just did one on genealogy. A lot of our members are moving into helping clients because genealogy is a big growing field and everybody's got photos from genealogy.
Yeah.
So, and then we have what we call regional groups. So we have regional meetings where people meet once a month based on their regions. We have a mentoring program and
Mm-hmm.
certification, which is a process that you go through. It's all self-paced and it's all included in membership. So we try not to add any additional fees to membership. It's $5.99 a year or $175 a quarter. So we try to keep that as reasonable. You pay for conferences and things like that, but all that training is included.
Wow. And
But if you
so,
I just want to
yeah.
get my own photos organized first, and I don't know if I want to do
Yeah.
that. Then it's $2.99 for the year. Every month we send you a little prompt. You meet all the other people, and we walk you through the process. And during the process, we'll say, "Hey, if you now do you think you want to upgrade? You can upgrade to the professional level." We've had over, I think we have 150 people now in that program, and that's been really successful. I'm really glad we did that because it's, if anything, at least you're getting your own photos organized if you
Right.
just don't want to do it for a business. So.
Right. Yeah. And I think, taking incremental steps can be something that's really powerful and a great way to test whether this is something you have an appetite to do or not. So I would love to hear too, just like some of the like a success story. I feel like we were talking about some success stories of some of your members, um, on how this has just like changed their lives.
Gosh, there's so many of them. I got to think. Let's just. Well, one thing I'm going to say on our YouTube channel, I do every month. I do career advice from a pro, and it's the Photo Managers, which is our YouTube channel. And I've asked. We
Mm-hmm.
finally put it on YouTube. I've been doing this for years. I
Mm-hmm.
asked the same 5 questions to different members. How did you get started? What do you love about your job? What don't you like about your job? How do you find your clients? And how has the Photo Managers helped you? And it's been
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. We just did a woman from Scotland.
Oh, I love that.
We've done husband and wife teams. We've done mother and son teams. We've done solo entrepreneurs. We've done Spanish speaking entrepreneurs. So anyway, that's a great way to get an idea of all the different levels of success that people have had.
Oh,
I can
nice.
talk about Joshua for a minute. My son, who was working with adults with special need, was pretty frustrated, and people still would find me thinking I did this. I do not organize photos or scan anymore. And I got a call from an old client. He had 100 slide carousels of slides that he needed done. And I said to Joshua, this is the time. I mean, that's a big job, and you have to invest in camera scanning and things. So he took it on. And he has since then, he has done some amazing projects with clients. A woman who wrote a book, a woman who was adopted. He's adopted, and she was doing her life story around adoption through. She was an indigenous person from Canada, and she came over and she's hugging him, and she had tears, and they've become good friends. They go out for coffee and things together. And he's supporting his wife and himself. Well, she has a job as well, but they just bought a house and he's able to make his mortgage payment, and he hopes to stay with it long term. So that's
Yeah.
an example of success there. All the way to thinking of Rachel Arbuckle, 2000 Paces in San Diego. She started her business during the fires in San Diego. She was standing at the bottom of her street, looking up the hill where her house was and saw the flames. Fortunately, her house didn't burn down, but she thought, oh my gosh, what if I lose all my photos? So
Mm-hmm.
she started her business, I think, 8 or 9 years ago, and she has, I think, 7 full-time employees. Works with clients all over the U.S. and some clients worldwide. Has a lot of systems in place. So she has a scanning technician, she has a digital technician, she's got an operations manager, and she's earning a great living and supporting and giving other people income. So my son doesn't have any
Mm-hmm.
employees. He doesn't even have a subcontractor yet. All the way to somebody like Rachel who has multiple employees.
Mm-hmm. I love this so much. I mean, there's just like I said, there's so much possibility, and it sounds like there's so much support and community. So it's not like you're joining a program and you just do this online thing and hope for the best. You
No, we're very, no, it's honestly, it's really not that at all. Because I think from my own background as a solo entrepreneur and a
hmm
mom, it's lonely, right? Business, I get
hmm
even
Yeah,
myself. I mean, I
sure.
run this organization. I have a couple full-time employees and quite a few VAs, but I get lonely. I'm in my office all by myself right now talking to
Right.
you.
Yeah.
I called one of our members, Kimberly, I've become really good friends with, and I had a
Uh-huh.
question for her, and she's in North Carolina, and she's like, oh, I was just on the phone with Allison. Well, Allison's a good member in Chicago. She was an attorney. Kimberly, I think, worked in operations. But anyway, they know each. She was on the phone with Allison. So they meet at conference, and a lot of our members form these little mini groups together where they
Mm-hmm.
are accountability partners. It makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's too lonely to be in business by yourself in a
Yeah.
community, unless you have a community around you, but it really helps to have people who know what you're doing. And if you had a bad day or you had a
Mm-hmm.
good day, you want to celebrate with somebody. So we really put a lot of systems in place to make sure that we allow that to happen
Mm.
organically as much as
I love
possible.
that. So, for our entrepreneurs who are listening and, those who might be interested in doing this, what are some of the tips that you have for entrepreneurs as they start and grow their businesses from the lessons you've learned? I'm sure you've learned many, but
Well, from a photo manager's perspective, I always tell people, ask themselves, these are the three key components for success in the business I'm in. Is one, are you curious about people? Are you a lifelong learner and bring curiosity? Because when you're working with a client, they're going to tell you their stories. They're going to tell you a lot about their photos and things. And you need to have a curiosity about that. That's going to really help. You have to be a
Mm-hmm.
lifelong learner. Also, are you willing to learn? You don't have to know technology, but are you willing to learn technology? Which
Mm-hmm.
means that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have to take that second breath and plow ahead anyway. That's really important. And I guess those are the two key factors that really make a difference. But from anybody in an entrepreneur journey, on the back of my wall, I have two sayings behind me. One is, it's Marie Forleo's, it's the name of her book, but is everything is figure outable. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to really like hold on to that when I can't figure things out. But the next one right next to it is It's Okay to Be Brave and Afraid at the Same Time by Brene Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you have to hold those two tensions, right? Can I figure this out because I've never done
Mm-hmm.
it before, or it's new, or I don't know, something's going to break it. I don't have an IT support team to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm scared, like I'm going to put
Right.
myself out there. What if people say no? What if they say, I wouldn't pay somebody to organize my photos, or I wouldn't. Now, not everybody's going to say no, and we know that, but you also have to have that, kind of get that. I think for any entrepreneur, those willingness to take that risk is critical, along with that willingness to keep trying and tenacity. Really, I've had a lot of tenacity. I don't give up.
Right. I mean, you didn't grow up going, I'm going to create a digital organization
No,
business.
no. I always tell people I never woke up and said, I
You
think today,
created.
today I'll create an association of. And honestly, I'll be honest, the digital technology piece has intimidated me. I went through a stage, I'm over it now for the most part, but I went through a couple of years where I had a real imposter syndrome, where I felt like if I was running this organization, as it got more technical, I didn't know how to use Adobe Lightroom, and I didn't know how to and I didn't have time to slow down and learn those products because I wasn't organizing photos. But I felt almost like like, oh no, I'm like going to be found out or something. And I've worked myself through that, realizing that's okay. I don't have to know everything,
Right.
but
Well, what did you do to help yourself overcome that?
I believe in coaching. I've worked with some coaches and I've
Hmm.
read a lot. I think being honest in talking to other entrepreneurs is really helpful. And I think just really understanding what are the stories we're telling ourselves, like what am I
Hmm.
story I'm telling myself is a big one.
Hmm.
And
Oh, yeah.
to hear the positive, with the negative, like, I mean, I get a lot of really great feedback, and like even your reaction, I've always gotten that, but the one negative is one I
Oh,
can,
sure.
and so really learning those voices don't belong with me in my space. So
Hmm. I
what's the
love
problem?
that so much. Cathi, it's been so great talking to you. I love your story. I love the company you built. I love the possibilities that you represent for all of our listeners. If you had any other takeaways that you would want to share with the listeners, what would that be?
That everybody has a story to tell, and your story matters, even if it's not, and this is not like a Pollyanna idea that we all have had these blessed lives with, wonderful parents and perfect children or things like that. My kids have given me a real run for my money. But those stories matter, and your story
Hmm.
matters. And so whether you hire somebody to do it or you do it for yourself, take the time to tell your story a bit and be proud of your journey. And so that would be
Right.
my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, and I think you're demonstrating that curating and preserving those stories for other people matters too. I mean, it's like I think it's such an incredible thing that you have created. And so I'm excited to share this story and see where it goes from here because I think it's just sky's the
Well, we're in
limit.
the early, we can feel it. It's just the word's getting out
Yeah.
more, and I think we'll,
Yeah.
we'll be thousands of members eventually. But I hope
Yeah.
we never lose the. It starts at the top, and that a rising tide
Hmm.
lifts all boats, and we're collaborative, not competitive, will remain the bedrock of our core values, and so
Hmm.
that because there's no reason there's way more customers than there'll ever be photo organizers. I'm positive of
Hmm.
that.
I
Yeah.
love that. So, where can listeners reach out and connect and learn more about photo managers? And we'll definitely leave a link to your YouTube channel so they can check that out too.
Yeah, that's a good place. Thephotomanagers.com is our website, and there we have a link, become a pro or become a photo manager in training, so you can learn there. We have lots of webinars, and there's a newsletter. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can follow us on social media. We're constantly communicating and offering training and support. So there's lots of ways to connect. LinkedIn is another one, and Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yeah, and you want to leave a link for our listeners for some resources? We'll do
Yes,
that in the show notes.
I'm gonna do yes, I'm gonna you can download our free guide, your photo organizing checklist and forms bundle. So if you're just to get yourself started and give you an idea of where all those photos might be, what kind of photos that you have, it's a great starting point for people. And then you'll get on our email list, and then you can certainly reach out if you have more questions. I also do a 15-minute call. It's on our website. You can set up a 15-minute exploratory call with me, also directly from our website if you want to have a personal one-on-one conversation before you make any decisions.
Yeah, I love it. It's been so wonderful talking to you and learning more about your business and your story. Thank you so much for sharing time with us.
All right. Thank you, Angela. Hope to meet some of your listeners.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll reach out. Thank you so much, Cathi.
Okay.